And we're live. Look at that, finally. Sorry, we had some technical issues on my side on the new board that we have, and I apologize for being late. I'm always on time usually. I wanted to have a show today about escrow and title because it's the number one question I always get asked is what is escrow, what is title, why do I need it, what's the owner policy that, so we'll get into all those questions later, but so I was searching around and I finally found a good company or a great company, I don't know how you want to say it, but that would come on and explain it because a lot of them don't want to get on air and talk about it. And I want to welcome Grant Marple for being here today. You're with Atlas Title.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah. They'll all be there pretty soon. They were all upset that we were late, so they jumped out. Anyway, the question so background, you've been doing it for about 8 years in the title industry, right?
Correct. Yep. So I can dive into a little of that, Ed. So background was with the LA Dodgers and in a sales position there out of school. The last 8 to 10 years, I've primarily worked with folks like yourself, mortgage brokers, lenders, in the title insurance and escrow space. So I know it's a confusing space. I always joke, my mom still asks me what I do, right? People don't really understand title insurance, and most folks, typically at the end of a transaction, just write the check for whatever their realtor or mortgage broker tells them. So definitely a confusing topic, and here to try to help better explain that.
I appreciate that. So let's just jump into it, so that people don't have to wait. My first question, what is an escrow? Because people always ask, why do I need escrow? What do they do?
Yeah, so escrow is typically the portion of the transaction where we kind of hold the money, right? We're the in-between person between the realtor and the lender. And typically there's involvement of paying off an old lender or tracking down different items and holding those funds basically to disperse the loan. So that's basically the simplified version of escrow, kind of that in between with the funds.
And actually you need an escrow if you're paying cash for the property because you want to have that money put into escrow and make sure that everything you're getting is exactly what they're talking about and everything, right? So that, it's not just a loan and that kind of stuff, but basically if you're paying cash for a property, you're going to have an escrow. I always call it's a neutral party who's there to make sure that, it's accounting. You have checks and balances to make sure that everything's paid off for the amount of money that was brought in and there's not anything additional. I know they do more, right?
Absolutely. And specifically like right now with tax season, right? With property taxes, that's a big deal. You're going to pay it through escrow or outside of escrow. And when you're talking about the largest investment in most people's lives, you typically want to go through some professionals that have done it multiple times. I've seen cases where, like, to your point, people kind of ask the question, hey, we're doing this all cash. We might not even have a realtor involved. That's where it gets real dangerous, and there's a lot of risk involved for the minimal fee that it costs.
And one thing I want to bring up, because in the past, especially when you're paying cash, make sure you have the right wire instructions. There has been situations in the past where people have been taken advantage of through emails and stuff. They think they're wiring the money to the escrow company and they're wiring it to somebody else, and then that money gets moved to many different places. So make sure you get your information directly from the escrow title company.
Absolutely. Right. And I always advise our clients to just pick up the phone and call, verify with the escrow company that wire instructions are there. Because that's probably one of the hottest topics in our industry right now, is cyber bullies are trying to navigate that.
So what's the best way to protect them?
Yeah, a lot of it's through secured interaction, right? Whether it's calling your loan officer or your real estate agent, double checking, verifying. That's what I always encourage them. Make sure the professionals are involved. A second call, a third call doesn't hurt, specifically at the end of the transaction, because a lot of times that's where those guys kind of try to change things last minute, right? Specifically, escrow title companies are getting hundreds of transactions coming in, right? They just assume that what they're getting is legit. So at the end of the day, I would contact directly your professional, whether it's the broker or the realtor, to verify.
And see, I would do one step and just only deal with the escrow company, because
absolutely,
for me, I don't want to be responsible for giving wire instructions to a client. And then it's the wrong wire instructions because it was given to me wrong. And next thing you know, now I have to take care of that $600,000 they just brought in paying cash or something, right?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I want to stay out of that part of it. Get it directly from the escrow company. And worst case, you could bring in a cashier's check to escrow. So make it easier.
100%. Make it nice and easy.
Let's see here. So basically, we talked about what is an escrow.
Yeah.
Let's get into the other question I had, and then we'll start taking any questions we have from the audience that's out there. So my other question: what is a title policy, and what does it do?
Yeah, so there's a couple different versions of title policies, and to not overcomplicate it, when you purchase a house, you have an owner's policy, and then when you do a refinance, there's a lender's policy. At the end of the day, the title policy is basically ensuring that there's no mechanical liens or liens in general, right? Property taxes are a popular thing, so when you're purchasing that house or basically refinancing your property, you're reassuring to those folks that, hey, title is clean and I'm not taking on anything that might be unnoticed. So we do a deep search on that property, ownership search, just to verify that everything's clear on it and that it's good to go basically to purchase the house. When you talk about title insurance, right? Like I mentioned earlier, it's a kind of an unknown thing. People, at the end of the day, kind of go back and forth. Hey, do I need this? I think the thing to understand for, I think, our group listening today, as a consumer, as a borrower, you actually get the choice to choose who you want to use for title and escrow at the end of the day. And there are a lot of options out there. So people kind of go back and forth. Title insurance in terms of the coverage and what it's offering is pretty generic. I would encourage you that I've just seen in the last 8 to 10 years, there's opportunity for the borrowers to save money substantially with the right title and escrow company. So as more people get educated, I think nowadays, this generation that's going to be buying, millions of homes is all about research, right? They're Googling, what is title? What is escrow? Why am I paying for it? So I would encourage, whether it's a loan officer listening today or a borrower, do your homework. Don't just assume that who you've been working with today is always the best option or the cheapest option. I think you would do yourself a disservice by not looking into actual title insurance and escrow and the cost behind it.
Right, and a lot of it, because a lot of people ask, I see down here so we do a loan estimate, right? So
Yeah.
It used to be, a lot of people don't realize things have changed a lot in the last 5, 6 years. Basically, it used to be escrow would disclose everything. Now the lenders disclose everything on the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. So we get all the information. We disclose those fees. And a lot of people think, well, you guys have a lot of fees. Those aren't our fees. We're disclosing for somebody else.
Yeah.
Our fees is in box 1. That's what our fees are. Every other place on there has to do with the escrow title company, whether you're doing impounds, no impounds, any county fees, any other stuff. A lot of people don't realize that. And so when we disclose, like I keep saying, they think they're our fees. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Those are not our fees. We're disclosing for a third party. And so when people look at, it says down at the bottom, it says owner title policy, and it says optional. It's never optional.
Correct.
I don't know why they put that down there. So what is the difference between a lender title policy and an owner's title policy?
Yeah. So I think the main difference that might be obvious to some is one is, basically protecting the lender and one's protecting the owner, right? And at the end of the day, your lender has to accept that title policy. So make sure that, that's typically a basic fundamental thing that, hey, in order to close this loan, it's required by whether it's Freddie or Fannie or one of the larger lenders or purchasers of loans, that there's title insurance involved. So typically it comes down to, the coverage and then the fees, right? That's when most people, like we've had recently, Ed, I was telling you a recent story about a friend that reached out to me and said, hey, I noticed your guys' fees from what you've been advertising are substantially lower. In today's market, people buying homes, it's highly competitive, 30 offers going in, 40 offers going in. So the scenario that you and I spoke about earlier was, using title and escrow to your advantage and purchasing a house today. And when you dive into that, it's typically split, depending on the market, 50-50, right? Seller pays for 50%, buyer pays for 50%. In this case, most title and escrow companies are, compared to Atlas, is probably 30 to 40% higher. So in this case, the buyer, who is a friend of mine, called and said, hey, can we write an offer that we're going to pay for the title and escrow costs? And I go, absolutely, you can, as the consumer. The listing agent in their mind probably thought the costs were going to be around $9 to $10 grand. Well, it turned out he was going to pay for all of it, and through Atlas, it was about $6,000. So it was saving about $4,000. His offer got accepted because they took on those fees, and the offer stood out. I think most folks are just used to paying a certain amount of level of insurance and escrow. And so when you see that there is a cost savings and you do your homework as a consumer, there's an advantage in today's market in actually looking at those costs and seeing how much you can save with your offer. So hope that kind of answers your question, but it's typically something that goes unnoticed, right?
I mean, a lot of people, they want to know, why do I have to pay a lender policy and why do I have to pay an owner's policy, right? And you're right about it. In California, by county, it is totally different who pays what. I just saw a situation where I was looking at the different counties, and everything is different. And on top of that, everything is negotiable, right? They say that when you're writing an offer. The only downside in this market, and you quickly talked about it, which was it's a seller's market. So basically, the seller is going to say, yes, you have a choice of using your own title company, but this is who I want to use. However, if you do what you just said, which is I will cover all escrow and title fees in the transaction, and then you're able to pick your title company. And for most people don't realize, when you pick the right title company and their fees and everything, because we all do all title policies are the same, right?
Correct.
They all are the same, right? There's no difference between them. It's not like a car warranty where we won't cover this part of your engine or this part of your transmission or whatever. It's the same thing. So basically, it's all about cost.
Absolutely.
So it's important that if you can go in there and write this, because I did this for somebody else that was trying to write a contract, and they were like, how do we get one edge? I took what exactly you said, and I'm like, okay, so you go to a normal title company. This is what your fee will be, right? And this is what the seller's fee will be. But if you go over to this company, and it was your fees at the time, I'm not trying to promote you during this time. I'm just trying to explain to people their fees were less than what it was for both people. And that was, for both of them, that was amazing. So I've had a few people write offers that way now to help get a foot up on somebody else, because they're all writing offers over or whatever. But it's all about, I don't think sellers and buyers, or even if you're refinancing, most of them don't understand how much the real cost of the escrow title fees are. They don't understand all that.
That's a great point. And I think too, as a consumer today, if you're a part of a transaction, whether you're listing your house or you're refinancing, I would educate and highly encourage everyone out there to just ask your professional, right? Ask the mortgage broker, ask the realtor about title and escrow, right? And I think there's an apparent red flag, in my opinion, if they're directing you and you might come to them with another solution and they're continuing to say, no, hey, we have to go down this path, right? There needs to be a clear, right? Because not to get into too much detail, but there could be relationships there that might not have your best interest as the consumer. And that's what you as the consumer have the right to protect and educate yourself on. So I would always encourage everyone to ask their professional, hey, just like my friend did, he reached out, right? And said, hey, notice you guys are doing title and escrow. Is that something I can do? Absolutely, it is. And if for some reason that particular realtor or lender is giving you a pushback, I would continue to question that until you get the answers that you want.
All right. So we just had a question asked, and wrote up on the screen. All right. It says, if I want to add my spouse to title after closing, does this change anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's a generic question that at the end of the day, you would actually prepare kind of a deed to add the spouse. I don't think it necessarily changes anything to your loan per se. A lot of people will go establish a trust and say, hey, we want to put the house in a trust. That's typically done through a lawyer. Title and escrow companies typically don't like to get involved with trust unless something's already established from the start of the transaction. But that's a great question.
No, I think the question more is, all right, so I'm going to put it back on the screen. So if we have a transaction and we're doing a purchase for somebody and they're married, but the person isn't on the loan, but they want to be on title. We normally go through the process and we can add them as a lender on title, no big deal.
Sure.
The issue we run into sometimes is some real estate companies and some other and escrow, they want to add all this other stuff, right? They got to sign all the contracts, they got to do all this, but they're not a buyer. They're just on title. So then some escrow companies tell them, Well, just add them on after when you close. Go get a grant deed and add them on. So the question I think is what they're asking is the title policy change after if you add somebody on? Does it change anything in the title policy, or is it still
Typically,
intact?
yeah, I mean, you're still insured. Typically, it's the owner that's actually on the loan, is the one that's getting the insurance. So, in terms of coverage, you should be good. I can't speak. Every title company has their own sets and ways of doing things, but just in general, I think you're going to be okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because that comes up a lot where
Oh
we
yeah,
try to, I mean, because my big thing is if you're in a situation where we're not including the spouse, because sometimes a lot of people we're dealing with, they're getting ready to get married, they're not married yet. We're doing one loan for the husband or the soon to be
sure,
wife, right? And then they want to add them on all of a sudden, and it throws a wrench for all the people, and they're all freaking out. And I just want to make sure there was no issue. So the title policy will stay going forward because that's part of the loan is what we're saying, right?
right.
It covers the loan. Okay. All right.
And that's what it's typically tied to. So, yeah, great question. Now, a lot of those things do come up. People are getting married. We had one the other day where, they had 6 properties that owned individually. They were getting married and they wanted to, have each other's names on the properties. So, in that instance, typically they'll have to go get a deed or quitclaim deed and go get it notarized and then record it at the county's office to kind of make that official. So, great question, though.
Yeah, because a lot of times what we do, especially if they're in a trust already, like they're refinancing
Yeah.
or whatever, we keep them in that trust. We just put
Yep.
a certification page or have
Tax
them
cert.
fill out a
Yeah.
page to sign it. So that way you don't have to do that extra step. Because one of the biggest problems is if it's not left in the trust when they do something, they'll forget to go down and
Oh
add it
yeah.
back in the trust, right? And most of the time it's
Yeah.
not a big deal to have a clause, but it could be a big deal for somebody, right?
Absolutely.
And I have a few more questions, but
Yeah.
like they're for me. All right,
Well,
so let's see this one. This one says, "How are rates
yeah.
and how are they going?" I'm sure they mean where are they going or whatever.
Sure.
I know we talked about this a while back before when we were thinking about doing this live. I'll let you. What's your take on where rates
Sure. I mean, I think the consensus with a lot of folks that we work with here at Atlas is that rates are probably going to continue to kind of drive up going into the early of next year. And at the end of the day, I think if you look at 2020 in March before everything transpired, rates were, you could be happy if you got below 4%, and then they dipped below 3, and I think it was a record number, right? And people are almost used to that. So I think rates will still stay favorably low in general, but they're going to naturally have to go back up. And with that, you can speak to it, Ed. There's a competitive advantage when you talk about closing costs, right? With rates going up, everything does matter, and we've seen that just in the last 2 weeks with a little uptick there. A lot more people reaching out to us, getting fee quotes, wanting doing a cost analysis, and great question. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I look at it from the other side because I watch the 10-year bond, the mortgage-backed securities, and all those are tied to what's inflation doing, right? And the problem right now is we have inflation numbers that each month is getting a little worse, even though it's the inflation is based off of things that were stopped during the pandemic, right?
Sure.
I looked the other day, I saw lumber was up. I heard 130%. I saw on TV the other night it was up 256%
Wow.
in cost,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of other things. You shut down the pipeline, now the gasoline, the diesel, everything's more expensive. Everything's getting more expensive. So they're going to see, I think, over each month for the rest of this year, maybe not October, November time. We're going to see a small tick up in the inflation, and that's going to cause rates to creep over the next few months up. But I think what's going to happen is end of the year, that inflation is going to go away because they're going to start getting caught up with doing lumber. And then next year they're going to see that. So then we see rates going back down. I don't
Sure.
want to say historically lows, but basically right now we're pretty much right where we were right before pandemic, which was
Yep.
the best rates we've ever seen
Oh
in our
yeah.
lifetime, right? Yes, during the pandemic they've dropped and they got half a point a little bit better. But
Sure.
the other day I quoted somebody and
Yeah.
it was 2.5 and their APR was 2.69,
Wow.
something like that, right? And that was a 15-year loan. I quoted somebody the other day on a 30-year loan, and it's exactly where Fannie and Freddie said the rates were the other day. They
Yep.
said the rates are like 3 to 3 and an eighth. And that's exactly where we were. And for us, we don't have underwriting fees, processing fees, all the garbage fees. So
Great.
we're like you. We're very clean. We don't want to have all those additional costs in there. So we try to do things very inexpensive. And so that's why when we ran into you, we were like, we definitely
Yeah.
want to go here because your guys' rates on just average for a normal refinance for us was about $500 to $700 cheaper for our clients. And that's why I'm really appreciative that we found each other because I needed someone
Yeah.
to come on the show. And then on top of that,
Absolutely.
look at look, the cherry on top of it.
Yeah.
They have amazing rates. All right. I got one more for me.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
before we get into that, let's ask anything else you want to add on about, because you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
For me, escrow and title is extremely boring.
Absolutely.
I know it's a necessary evil, and I don't mean that
Sure.
wrong, but you want to have that company there overseeing all the things so that you're not taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to, any additional stuff you want to add before I get into my next question?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was going to add was, in terms of this environment today, in general, right, to partner with someone like yourself that's a mortgage broker that can close a loan, right, in 20, 30 days. There's a
I'm
lot
sorry.
of,
Hold on. I can close a loan. All right. So the question should be up here. How quickly can you close a loan? I
yes,
close purchase loans in 9 days, and I
wow,
close refinances in 12 days. It's all about getting everybody out of the way, so we can do that. And the fastest
love
one I
it.
closed on it, the one recently I closed in
Yeah,
9 days, was a self-employed individual who was with a bank. The bank had him for 60 days and couldn't approve him. We
yeah,
got him approved, and we had to wait for the LE 7 days in order
sure.
for him to sign loan documents, but they closed in 9 days.
And that's huge. And that's what I was going to kind of add to is like partnering with the right provider like yourself in an environment like this. If you can't make an offer that is competitive, that's going to close, because a lot of these, a lot of these listing agents are like, hey, we want conditions cleared in X, and having the ability to close in 9 days separates yourself from most out there. On top of, like you mentioned, us saving $500 to $700 per the transaction. And then from a title perspective too, an escrow perspective, the team's got to have the right capacity and ability to actually operate where you actually open an order with us, right? And then close it within 10 to 12 days. A lot has to happen in order to make that successful. So yeah, I would just encourage folks that are looking to buy or on the fence, first thing to do, or to get with someone like yourself, Ed, get pre-approved, right? Because most people want to look, right? They'll call me. We have family that's in real estate too here in Orange County, and they'll be saying, hey, look at this place. I go, stop looking, go get pre-approved, start there, because nothing else matters at the end of the day. If you show up somewhere you're not pre-approved, there's going to be 8 people behind you that are already in line, ready to go. So that's what I would encourage folks that are listening today that are looking or just trying to see if the market's going to go up, go down. The best advice I got early on was, listen, buy a house when you can afford it. Don't try to time it. Don't try to look at, hey, rate's going to go up. If you can afford it and you like something, pull the trigger. So that's kind of my encouragement for the group listening today from my perspective.
And I think that's a great perspective because that's the same way I feel. Rates are still amazing right now. Right?
Yeah.
For most people, it's the lowest they're going to probably see in their lifetime. I mean, I always say this. I started in this business taking people from 13 to 9, and they love me. Now, if I get somebody at 3%, they think I'm taking advantage of them, right? We just got really spoiled with these really low rates, which is
Sure.
okay. And we have so many people coming in the market in that young age from when they were born in 85 to 95 right now, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And I mean worse by the fact that we're not going to have enough inventory at all out there for anybody. And we're going to see these prices continue to rise for a while. I don't want to be like in 2006 that, oh, we'll never see these prices go down, right? And then all of a sudden, but the difference is 1 in 4 offers right now are cash still, and everything else has down payment pretty much, right? Because right now, if you have a called HAPA program where you're doing a down payment assistance, whatever,
Yeah.
they're not even going to look at your offer because they have 9 other offers. 2
Sure.
of them are cash. The other ones are 20% down. The other one's probably 10% down, then 5% down, then FHA, and then you have a Cal HAPA, unfortunately. So there's reasons that you should look at other programs and possibly, you need to get a gift from a family member for now, and you can work it out or borrow from your 401k.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm sorry to keep you on with these. I have one more question.
Yeah, no problem.
Same person who asked about rates. We're asking, when should I consider refinancing? Is there a way to refinance without converting back to a 30-year? This is an easy question for me.
Yeah.
When should you consider refinancing? Well, you should depends. There's two different ways. There's a rate and term refinance, and we just lower your rate or term, and then there is a cash out refinance. And the cash out refinance, a lot of times you can do those and you pay off a lot of debt, but then the savings that you have, you reapply it to the loan again, and you can pay your house off in like
Yeah.
11 years. It's a very complicated situation, and I can do another show on that. But basically, when should you consider refinancing? You should consider it all the time. You can just
Yeah.
call up and check with somebody, see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense today, find out when it would, and then set it up. And the question about the 30 year, no, you do not have to go back to a 30 year. Even if you do a new loan, you can do the term that you have right now. If you have 26 years left on your loan, you can do 26 years left. If you can do 25, you can do 23. The term doesn't matter anymore. You do not have to go back to 30. But for myself, for a lot of the people refinancing,
Sure.
I took a lot of people from their 27 years down to a 20-year loan, and their payment didn't change.
It's huge.
A lot of people goes, why didn't you lower their monthly payments? Like, I'd rather take 7 years off my loan than
Yep.
save a couple $100 that you're gonna just waste on something else throughout the day, right?
Absolutely. That's huge. That's huge.
All right, so that's the last question. So I got
Great.
all my questions. Now, I mean, I'm still stuck on the whole thing about where you have the buyer pay the seller's fees,
Yeah.
so that they can get that offer, because that's an incentive to get into escrow. Be very competitive over another offer. How can you get your offer accepted over somebody else? I would tell everybody to look at that situation. So whoever you're working with, if you're working with a lender right now or a broker, please ask them, hey, what would my fees be? And if they don't have a title company that their fees go down a little bit more, they can contact you at Atlas Title Company. Is there a number for someone to contact you if they have questions on fees and how to set certain things up?
Yeah, the best route probably is to head to our website, atlastitlecode.com. There's basically information. You can fill out your contact information. Someone will get back to you right away. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram as well. You can easily find us. And I think what you'll see, you can get a fee quote right on our website there. If you're looking for, refinance, just to compare, even as a consumer out there listening, just to kind of see what we're doing. We're here to save California consumers substantial amount of money on their closing costs.
And you're not just in California, right? You're another state?
Correct. Yeah. So we actually just expanded into Arizona and Nevada, got approved in the state of Texas, and we'll probably be in about 20 other states here by the middle of the summer. So if you got a second property, I know a lot of people are relocating to a lot of these states, or you might have family members there. Keep us in mind. We're doing a lot of business in Nevada and Arizona as well right now. We literally, I think, are growing one state each month to help keep up with the demand that we're seeing right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, when you have rates, and I don't want to keep.
Sure.
When you have a rate on something that is, no matter where you go, it's the same policy. Why would you pay more for it? Why pay extra for it? I mean, it's about saving money. And this isn't. I mean, I've done some of these in the past with some of the companies I work with. These other companies, they said use them. There's lower fees, lower this, but they're not the same. And I want people to understand this is a totally different situation. This company's in California. They're in Orange County. You guys have an office in Sacramento?
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of our stuff's remote, but we got a team up there in the Sacramento Roseville area as well, folks throughout the Bay Area, and then our corporate office is down here in Irvine. So looking forward to working with you guys, and I appreciate you having me on here today, Ed.
Oh, I appreciate it, because I want people to understand what the difference between escrow and title, and if they have any questions more, they can send us an email. They can contact me direct message, and I'll get the answers for them on the next live. And Grant, I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Have a great week, guys.